The village of Glencroft lay nested at the edge of the Scottish Highlands, a quaint cluster of stone cottages surrounded by rolling hills and a smattering of forest. Generations of families had called this isolated haven home, finding solace in the rugged beauty that marked the Highlands. However, an ominous shadow had begun to cast its pallor upon the village, shrouding it in fear and despair. It all started innocently enough with the disappearance of young Callum MacGregor, an ambitious lad with dreams of exploring the expanses of the Highlands. Callum's absence sent ripples of unease through Glencroft, for he was known as a cautious soul who would never venture too far from the village boundaries. Rumours whispered through the tight-knit community, speculating about the eerie emptiness that now lurked within the ancient glens. Something in the last few months had started to change about this magnificent landscape. As the days passed, more and more stories came out about people going missing. Hikers, holidaymakers, other villagers, and even farmers who had been there for generations, all went missing. Old Maggie Sinclair, who had lived in Glencroft for as long as anyone could remember, vanished without a trace whilst picking herbs in the woods. The usually bustling market square became a ghostly echo of its former self, with fearful eyes darting anxiously between the shadows. Those of a more eccentric nature convened in somber discussions, exchanging hushed words about the ancient legends that told of something predatory lurking in the Highlands. The tales spoke of a variety of creatures, but most seemed to describe a beast with eyes that glowed like cold embers, a creature that moved with an unnatural silence, leaving only the echo of its haunting growl behind. A sense of dread settled over Glencroft as the villagers locked their doors at night, and the once lively streets emptied with each passing sunset. Those who remained recounted spine-chilling encounters, glimpses of large shadowy creatures swiftly moving through the thick mist, and the eerie sound of unearthly howls that seemed to reverberate through the very soul. A group of brave souls, determined to unravel the mystery, set out into the heart of the Highlands, armed with lanterns and trembling resolve. The night air was thick with tension as they traversed the ancient trails, each step taken with caution and trepidation. The moonlight struggled to penetrate the dense clouds overhead, casting an eerie glow that played tricks on the imagination. As the group ventured deeper into the wilderness, the wide open moors created by man, they stumbled upon a strange set of gnarled trees that stood like sentinels in the wilderness, their twisted branches clawing at the sky. It was there, beneath the pallid moonlight, that they saw something. A massive, sleek predator with eyes that glowed like smouldering coals. Its form melted seamlessly into the shadows, and a low growl emanated from the darkness, freezing the blood in their veins. Fear gripped the group, paralyzing them as the creature approached. A cold wind whispered through the grass, carrying with it the mournful wail of the Highland winds. The villagers could feel the predatory gaze fixated upon them, a gaze that spoke of ancient hunger and insatiable hatred. And then, in an instant, whatever this creature was seemed to vanish, leaving behind only the haunting echo of its growl. The group stumbled back to Glencroft, their minds haunted by the encounter. The village, now united by the shared terror, grappled with the realization that the Highlands harbored a malevolent force that defied their understanding. As the moon dipped below the horizon, Glencroft fell into an uneasy silence. The question lingered in the air like a curse. Who would be the next one to disappear into the depths of the Highlands, never to return? The village, gripped by the fear of the unknown, braced itself for the chilling chapters that awaited in the ongoing saga of these Highland disappearances. As the moon waxed and waned, more families found themselves touched by the tendrils of tragedy. The Henderson twins, Emily and Alistair, disappeared on their way home from school. The village's blacksmith, Aidan Mackenzie, never returned from his workshop, leaving his anvil silent and his forge cold, hundreds of years of Highland tradition lost with him. Each loss deepened the collective grief of Glencroft, and whispers of a malevolent force that hunted in the night echoed through the village like a haunting refrain. Desperation pushed the villagers to desperate measures. A once unified community fractured into factions, with some believing the only solution was to leave, abandoning their homes to escape the relentless grip of the unseen terrors. Others clung to the fading hope that a solution could be found somewhere in the history of this ancient land, perhaps in text or in stone. In a dimly lit corner of the village, an old woman named Elspeth, whispered to have a gift of second sight, gathered those who sought answers. With a voice that carried the weight of ages, she spoke of an ancient pact made by the village's forebears, an vengeful guardian that now sought retribution. According to Elspeth, the creature was not just a predator, but a sentinel of something else, protecting something that she could not quite grasp, a secret known only to their long-gone ancestors. As expensive as the National Park of the Highlands is, it was drawing ever more attention from outside forces, such as the authorities. They wanted to see what was causing all the disappearances, fearing that perhaps an escaped convict, zoo animal, or murderer was behind the disappearances. They visited many of the small villages and towns that dotted the Highlands, but seemingly no one had answers. In fact, the majority had people they knew that went missing too, and demanded swift action from the police to find their lost loved ones and to sort this entire mess out. When they finally reached Glencroft, they were directed towards Elspeth. 2 police officers arrived at her door. Officer Matthews and McCreary were invited in for some tea. Once they were situated and comfortable, they began questioning the old lady. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with us, miss. We were informed you might be the one to talk to about the disappearances in the area," Officer McCreary said.
"Aye, I'll try to help you as much as I can, but down to the nature of my knowledge, I doubt you city boys will heed any of it."
"We just appreciate your time, patience and cooperation. Anything you think might help will be wonderful, thank you," Officer Matthews said with a smile.
"Well, if that's the case, lovely, I'll tell you what I know. I've no got a perfect grasp on it. Maybe when I was younger I'd be able to gleam out the void, but unfortunately all I can offer is an inkling."
The 2 police officers looked at each other, a slight look of confusion on their faces.
"So, as you probably know, these are very old lands, and even in my short lifetime they've changed dramatically. The forest around here used to be bigger, thicker, full of life. They were made up of Scots pine, that big true native tree that sends roots deep into the soil. Not these twigs brought over by the logging companies that fall over in a slight breeze."
She gestured to outside of her window.
"Can you see the trees now? You have to travel far for a decent forest. The old forest used to be everywhere, as far as the eye can see. Way before my time, unfortunately. But we still have a few knocking around with some things in them. We got red squirrels and deer in abundance. But there used to be more. Much more. The land was healthier. Back when the wolf roamed, the bear trampled down caught salmon by the creeks. Even those big old moose used to be here, galumphing through ponds."
"Miss, with all due respect, what does this have to do with the disappearances?" McCreary asked, getting impatient.
"I'll get to that, don't you worry, love. Now look outside. Take a really long look. What do you see?"
"I could see the Highlands. There's a stone wall, a church. There's a few sheep around there."
That's it, lovey. You hit the nail on the head with that last one.
I don't follow, miss. Matthews took a sip of his tea.
Sheep, darling. There's so many sheep here. Have you seen that? All over this land. They're no here naturally. And the bloody buggers are everywhere. Them and the deer.
Are you saying that the hikers were killed by sheep?
No, you silly sausage.
The old woman said, giving the police officer a playful slap on the shoulder.
Hey, it's not the sheep's fault. They're just doing what comes naturally to them. It's what they do to the land. And how the land responds. You ever seen a documentary about locusts, how they go through everything? Well, deer and sheep are a lot like locusts. They'll eat almost anything, especially young trees. That's one of the main reasons we ain't got so much anymore. A lot of hoof stock. No predators.
Miss, I still don't see what this has to do with the disappearances of people.
The land's angry, love. It's royally pissed. We've dirtied the rivers. We've destroyed the forests. We've killed the critters that used to live all around here. And for what? People come out here for camping and tourism. But what for? It's no Canada. It's mainly a bunch of fields and sheep shit. Don't get me wrong, I love my Scotland. And I'll stay here till the day I die. But my family are more connected to this land than most of the people here. We feel its pain. And that's why I know, whatever's causing all this, it's full of vengeance and rage. And who better to take that rage out on than whoever's about?
When the old woman finally finished, both police officers seemed to take a deep sigh, feeling that they've come to a dead end and wasted their time.
I told you probably not believe me. But I can probably help you, point you in a better direction. There's only one person I know older than me, and he lives in the village of Dunbridge. He goes by the name of Eamon. Haven't seen him for years. Hopefully he's still alive. But if anyone knows, it's that old coot.
The two policemen left the woman, giving her thanks for her time and tea, debating for a time on whether to follow up on this Eamon in Dunbridge. It took them a few days to decide, but after reports started to worsen, livestock turning up dead throughout the Highlands, they decided to take the long drive. The moors surrounding the village of Dunbridge were once serene and undisturbed, but now they bore witness to a gruesome spectacle. Sheep and cattle, the lifeblood of the local farmers, turned up mauled and lifeless in the hundreds. Rage and panic gripped the community, as stories came in from all around of a large black creature, some unknown beast prowling their fields. Intrigued by the bizarre occurrences, the two police officers travelled to Dunbridge to uncover the truth behind the unexplained carnage and the disappearances. The village, shrouded in an eerie quiet, welcomed the two with cautious glances and terse words. Amidst the anxious whispers were mentions of the old wise man Eamon MacLeod. Despite being in his early 90s, he was a regular of the local pub, the Red Lion. The two were quickly directed there and soon found it, and in its corner, nearest the window, gazing out longingly at the roving hills, long grey hair cascading over his shoulders, and beard hiding much of his face, was Eamon. His withered face bore the lines of countless years, and his eyes held a depth of wisdom that spoke of a connection with the land. He glanced over at them, giving them a polite nod as they approached his table. "Eamon MacLeod?" McCreary asked.
"Aye, lad. What can I do you for?"
The Wizard of the Red Lion replied. "We were wondering if we could ask you about the disappearances and the livestock mutilations. We were told by a Miss Elspeth you might be able to help," said Matthews.
"That's that old crone still alive. Bloody Nora. I guess it's true what they say about mountain air,"
he said with a chuckle, but then his face went pensive. Initially reluctant to share his knowledge, Eamon hesitated.
"Best we go somewhere more quiet. Come, I'll take you mine. Got a lovely warm hearth.
He stood, making his way towards the exit, beckoning the 2 police officers to follow him to the quiet solitude of his cottage. In the dim light of Eamon's hearth, the old man's gaze met theirs, and he began to unravel a tale that transcended time. With a voice that carried the weight of ancient secrets, Eamon spoke.
How much do you 2 lads know of the history of this land? Before it was called Scotland. And not just Scotland, but the entire island.
I know bits and pieces, like Henry VIII and stuff.
No, that's far too recent. I'm talking way before.
You mean like the Viking settlements and whatnot?
You're getting close, but even further far back than that. You see, the Scots can trace their roots to the first people that settled on these isles. No offence, wee man.
None taken, sir.
A long, long time ago, the hills of Scotland and much of Europe lived the Celts. The true Celts. The ones that lived and hunted off the land, living in a tribal society. Was not glamorous, it got them by. They lived in harmony with the land for generations. Not like now.
He tapped his long bony finger onto a ram skull that he had seated on the table next to him. Seems you also have a problem with sheep.
No, I don't have a problem with sheep. Nor the farmers. They're hard workers. My son's one. But he don't keep 1,000 sheep on one field. Doesn't let them roam into the woods. He respects the land. That's what a lot of these farmers have lost. They've lost connection. And not just the farmers. Most people don't know what they've lost. This land currently known as Scotland, or as I said, even the UK, used to have seas of trees.
Your friend was telling us about that. Said something about the deer and sheep being the problem.
Aye, that's the biggest current issue. That's more recent, and more like a nail in a coffin. With no wolves to bite at their heels, they just keep munching away at those poor saplings. It's no wonder the forest is shrinking. Anyway, where was I?
The old man seemed to ponder for a moment, looking up at the ceiling as if to see writing there to help him continue his train of thought.
That's right, the Celts. So they believed in a pantheon, don't you know? None of this Jesus stuff. No offence, I just don't like a religion being pushed on you like the Romans like to do. Anyway, this pantheon contained a number of deities. One of the most powerful, especially in these lands, was Cernunnos.
McCreary glanced at his watch. The old man seemed to notice and get a little cross.
I can stop there if you like.
No, sir. No. Please continue. Anything you can say will help. The old man pouted for a second before continuing.
You see, Cernunnos, he's the god of the wild. No more wild place in these lands than the forests. As long as the people treated the land with respect, they would be given bounty, taking no more than they needed to survive. And for a time, things were good. The forests and the fields provided, the rivers were full of salmon, the woods full of game. But as different people started to come to these lands, like you English.
Matthews fidgeted in his seat nervously.
I'm just messing with you, son. I'm not the type to blame the sins of the father on the son. But a lot of strife began when the Romans came, started forcibly civilizing people. And from them, and the Angles, and the Danes, and the Vikings, I'm no historian, I can't tell you the full history, but all I know is once those who sought to dominate the land and not live with it came here, our relationship with Cernunnos, the Horn God, started to sour. Our relentless expansion of man's world into his, the encroachment on once untouched lands, I think it's been waking him up. He's old, forgotten, but no without power. And he's angry.
The two officers, once extremely disinterested in the old man's ramblings, now sat like two of his grandsons, listening to their grandfather regale them with a tale, each one slumped forward with their elbows on their knees.
Imagine being revered as a guardian of nature, watching in silence as the wilderness you presided over was destroyed by a relentless march of progress. Your patience would wear thin. And now, with whatever strength he has left, he's taking retribution.
As Eamon shared the tale, his eyes reflected the solemn gravity of the situation.
We've got to appease him, or things are just gonna keep getting worse.
The old man slumped, seemingly done with his tale. The two younger men now straightened up, McCreary asking, "So if this is all true, how do we do that? How do you suppose that we appease a god?" he said, unable to hide his disbelief.
My best guess, restore the balance. Well, that's easier said than done with all the red tape.
Red tape?
You know, all this land's owned by just a few families.
Families around the village?
No, lad. Scotland. Scotland's owned only by a few families. And you try telling them to get sheep off. Makes money. Not from selling the meat, of course. Barely anyone eats that shite. And barely anyone uses wool anymore. It's all government subsidies and that crap. Sorry, didn't mean to get political.
The old man leaned forward, putting his elbows on his knees, looking around the room. He closed his eyes, took a deep sigh, as if expelling the weight of ages.
Truth be told, lads, there's a lot of damage to be reversed, and I didn't know if it'll happen in my lifetime. Highly doubt it. Might not happen in yours. But I think we need to prove to Cernunnos that we're willing to make a change.
So we got to start planting trees now, is that it?
Couldn't he hurt?
The old man shrugged.
Unless you put him behind the fence, won't stop the sheep. And that definitely won't stop deer.
You aren't one of these nutters that wants to introduce wolves back, are you? Is this what this is all about?
No, that's not what this is about. But that would be a massive step in the right direction. That's what they're for. I suppose that's why the spectre around here looks so lupine.
The police officer's ears perked up at that. You said you've seen something around here?
Aye, I suppose a lot of people have.
Now we're getting somewhere. What is it you've seen?
I'm surprised more people haven't been talking about it. Suppose they don't want to sound crazy. There's no you can do. If you want to go check it out, be my guest. But I warned you. Out on the moors, if you go there past midnight, you're bound to see a massive black canine. I say it looks like a wolf, others say a dog. I don't think Cernunnos would send a dog. That's more of a civilization thing.
As Eamon rambled to himself, the two police officers leaned into each other. Could be an illegal escape pet. You remember the Puma of Glen? Oh, yeah, the one in 1980. What was her name again? It's a puma or something called Felicity. Hey, that's the one, down by Loch Ness. She was living in the wild for years, eating sheep and deer. Could be someone's done the same with a big dog or maybe a pet wolf. There's that Highland Wildlife Park, maybe one escaped from there. Haven't heard of an escape, no one's notified us. I suppose they could be covering their arse. The officer turned back to Eamon. Would you be willing to show us where he saw the creature?
I suppose so. But as I said, you won't be able to do much. Though if you want to see it, you're going to have to stay late. Is that okay?
McCreary and Matthews looked to each other. These are the latest cattle mutilations. But shouldn't we call in an animal expert? No, we're not going to act yet. If we see something, confirm what we've seen and then call it in. Makes more sense. Suppose then we could pass this to someone more qualified. Exactly my thoughts. So let's do this late one. Get out the way. After radioing in and getting the go-ahead back from their office, the two officers sat with the old men talking amicably about different topics from sport to their favourite foods. At about 11:30, Eamon gathered his guests and the trio ventured into the heart of the moors, where the land bore scars of man's encroachment. The mist clung to the rugged landscape as Officer McCreary and Officer Matthews followed the hunched figure of Eamon through the desolate moors of Scotland. The wind whispered ancient secrets, and the moon cast an eerie glow on the heather-covered hills. Eamon, with a mane of silver hair and a withered face etched with lines, led the way with an air of both determination and trepidation. The two officers exchanged uneasy glances as they trudged deeper into the mysterious expanse. The reports of livestock mutilations and eerie sightings had brought them here, and Eamon claimed to know the source, but they were still unsure. Nothing could be certain. Perhaps this old man was crazy and had some sort of weapon. Perhaps he was trying to lead them to their doom. But after the better half of a day getting to know the old man, they felt relaxed around him, putting that fear to bed. Suddenly Eamon stopped.
"We're close, lads. Keep your wits about you. I can feel it."
The trio pressed on, the crunching of heather beneath their boots the only sound. Suddenly, a guttural growl echoed through the mist, sending shivers down their spines. Out of the shadows emerged a massive, ethereal figure. Indeed, it had the shape of a large black wolf, far bigger than the average man. The creature encroached forward towards them. The two officers took a step back, but the old man stood his ground, staring forward at the spectral predator.
"Cernunnos,"
he whispered, a mix of reverence and fear in his voice. The creature's ears shot up, and it almost tilted its head like a confused dog, before all of a sudden it stood upright and transformed before their very eyes into the visage of a man? No, not quite. Atop his shaggy brown head were an exquisite rack of antlers, larger than even the biggest of stags in the area. The creature, a majestic fusion of man and beast, regarded them with ancient eyes that held both wisdom and sorrow. As if answering a call, the wind picked up, carrying with it the echoes of a forgotten time.
"Old man,"
Cernunnos' voice crept across the land like ice.
"why have you brought these men here?"
Eamon's gaze never wavered as he spoke.
"The people of Scotland suffer. The land is wounded, I know. They know not the price of progress, and have forgotten the ways of old. Spare them, noble one, and I offer myself as a willing sacrifice. Grant the land time to heal. They're moving in the right direction. They just need time."
The officers looked at Eamon in disbelief, but there was a solemn determination in the old man's eyes. Cernunnos considered Eamon's plea. His eyes softened for a moment. Then, the air crackled with an otherworldly energy as Cernunnos spoke.
"Very well, Eamon. Your selfless sacrifice will be accepted. But the people must remember the balance. The land is a gift that demands respect, or I will return, and I will put things right myself."
As the stagman faded into the mist, the officers stared at Eamon, who stood still with a quiet resolve. The old man turned to them, his eyes reflecting both sadness and acceptance.
"Go back to your people, even you English. Tell them the tale of Cernunnos. Let them learn from the wisdom of the land. Don't fight against it, 'cause you can't win in the end."
And just like that, Eamon disappeared into the mist as well, not a trace to be found. With heavy hearts, the officers retraced their steps, leaving the moors behind, forever changed by their experience in the Highlands and their brief meeting with its people, and they would never forget the brave, wise man they had just met, or his teachings, never forget of his embrace of his fate, hoping that his sacrifice would serve as a reminder to all to cherish the ancient bond between man and nature.